Yes, Mayor, I do.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're live.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, May 17th, 2021 Dublin City Council work session. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Jenny to please call the roll.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms,
I'm here.
Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Here.
Ms. Aludo,
Here.
Ms. Fox,
Here.
Mr. Keeler,
Here.
and Mr. Reiner.
Here.
Great. I would like to ask Homer Rogers to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Homer. Okay, we have two items for discussion this evening. One is a Zen City report and then a review of our past goals. So we'll start with the Zen City report, and I believe Lindsay has a presentation for us this evening. There she is. So welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of council. I'm happy to be with you tonight. Digital and brand manager Bruce Edwards and I are joining you to show you the social sentiment and public engagement platform, Zen City. At the December 4th Administrative Committee meeting, members expressed a desire for council to have access to this platform, and tonight's presentation is a follow-up to council on that item. Before we get into Zen City, we wanted to provide a quick overview of the city's expanding digital footprint. And I believe we have a couple of slides to show you this. And this kind of sets the stage for why tools like Zen City are necessary in today's ever-changing web-based communications climate. So Bruce often jokingly refers to when he was hired to work for the city of Dublin 20 years ago as the website administrator. And Bruce, if you go to the next slide, you'll see that that's much different than the climate that we are working under today. So our main website is still our bread and butter to speak. So dublinohiousa.gov remains the place where we keep everything, all of the information that we have. It's the centralized hub for all we do. The Communications and Public Information Division also manages several other websites, including the Bridge Street District, Economic Development, and the popular Dublin Irish Festival sites. We also work with traditional media to share our content, but we also have to constantly monitor those traditional media organizations for stories about Dublin or involving Dublin in some way. And in terms of social media, the city has growing audiences on all of the major platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Online engagement has exploded with the emergence of virtual public meetings. So that has been an expanding area, especially in the last year that we've seen. And of course, we have the Go Dublin app at our disposal, which is very popular for processing service requests, but can also be used as a two-way communications tool as we implemented during the COVID crisis by adding a coronavirus button to the app's home screen that takes users right to the COVID-19 hub, a place where they can get the latest information and then also immediately ask questions of staff. We also have a weekly e-newsletter featuring our Dublin News Now videos and other timely updates from the city. And we have the ability to do news briefs via Alexa, which we've been doing for the past few years. So all of this just to show you that we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. And that is fantastic in terms of being able to reach our residents and to communicate and engage with them. But as you can imagine, it's also a lot in terms of monitoring. And it's not slowing down, surprisingly. You might think that there's social media fatigue, as some of us experience, but this graph shows our social media growth from 2013 to now, and you can see steady growth among all platforms, which means that there are more people engaging with us online, which again is a great thing. It also means there are more and more conversations to monitor. And it's important for us to follow and understand our residents' social media activity for a number of reasons. Number one, to help us keep a pulse on the community and any misinformation that is out there. That way we can mitigate that misinformation and rumors and direct people to correct information. It's also important just for us to know what topics our residents are most engaged with at any given time, and it can surprise you, and on what platforms. So the ability to know and understand and measure our residents' online behavior is sort of the backbone to all of our communications and engagement efforts. And that's where Zen City comes in and has been a very useful tool for us over the last couple of years. And for that, I will turn it over to Bruce for a closer look. Bruce.
Thank you, Lindsay, and good evening, members of council. I'm going to give you a brief intro into how we use Zen City, but you will be scheduled executive training sessions with Zen City's Ariel Fisher, where you will get a real deep dive into the tool. So again, we're just scratching the surface today. So what is Zen City? I know some of you know, but I don't want to assume everybody knows. Zen City allows us to hear beyond the STPs, or the same 10 people, to connect to all corners of our community. Zen City collects and analyzes data. It pulls from hundreds of external and internal channels and feedback sources. Zen City provides us actionable insights and tailored reports so we can easily measure and improve resident satisfaction. With that, I don't want to just show you that slide. Let me show you the live Zen City. Hang on one second. Okay, so this is the three things I really want to, the big takeaways are snapshots, projects, insights. And again, when you talk to Ariel, you'd be like, I remember those three, the snapshots, projects, and insights. So snapshot, everybody has seen dashboards. Brandon Brown has done an amazing job of preparing things in a digestible format. So Zen City continues with that, what we're used to, that digestible information. So when you land on this page, you can see what we look at. I do weekly reports for our team. So we want to look at how we did the previous week to build for the next week. So we look at the volume of interactions, and you can see trends, whether they're positive or negative. And that's super helpful to measure sentiment. Is there anything glaring? If there's a red flag there, then that's when we start to initiate a project. But there is so much here that you can dig into. And again, I don't want to go into down that rabbit hole, but you can break it down into wards. You can break it into the city. You can also see the top stories. So if there's something that pops up that's whether positive or negative, that's related to Dublin, you know, our team can react in a timely fashion. So if there is something, you know, that's when Zen City gets interesting. So you can create a project. If we see something that is trending, or if we have an initiative that is kicking off, we create a project. So we submit it to Zen City. We say, hey, here are the parameters, start pulling data for those trends. So I'll click on projects here. And as you can see, we have about 80 active projects, but we set up the Dora project last June. So what's great about this is we can see a life cycle of an initiative or a project. And of course, it's not loading right now. Let me refresh it. So you can see, like, I just have it up for the last month, and we announced last week that the Adora would be kicking off, the first Adora would be kicking off on May 10th. You can see the interaction there, positive, negative. So we can go back in time. We can do a snapshot of the year. We have a lot of stuff at our disposal to measure and analyze. So this project, then, once a project is complete, that leads to an insight. And insights are summaries that help us to best determine how to engage with the community moving forward. So I'm going to click on the insights feed. So just the first thing that pops up, the last completed insight was about Earth Month. So we can, Zen City puts together this report and says, hey, this was the most, you had a lot of activities going on in Earth Month. The wishing tree was the top thing. Household hazardous waste, surprisingly, was the bottom thing. that's where we got to look at it, dig a little deeper and find out why that's last. Do we need next year to promote the household hazardous waste more? But what I like is their summary reports, the last line indicating residents appreciate having these resources. So if I scroll down a little bit further, there is when we did told everybody what the 2021 Irish Festival was going to look like. We could see that the Reimagined Festival, let me click on that. There's a lot of data in there. And again, I don't want to read everything, but we received sizable support and excitement for an event despite the reduced size. So people are still gung-ho for the Irish Festival because they know coming from Dublin, it's going to be another great event. So we get an incredible amount of data from Zen City. So how do we manage it? So under subscriptions, I know there's some people here that will just look at that dashboard and say, hey, that's nice. But there are others I know that are going to want to dig a lot deeper, maybe even receive push notifications or daily emails, weekly emails, you name it. That's what it's here for. So again, at your executive training, you'll be able to thoroughly immerse yourself into the tool. We just wanted to show you how we use it on a daily basis. The last thing I really want to say about this before I turn it back to Lindsay is that there is a conversation going on out there. And before we had Zen City, we used to, and we still do, measure engagement on each of our channels, but Zen City allows us to go outside of our digital echo chamber and hear the larger conversation that is going on in the community. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other again and turn it back over to Lindsay.
Thanks, Bruce. And I'm not sure if the members of council would like you to bring that back up. They can certainly ask you to do that. And I just wanted to mention how I said earlier, things can surprise you. So on the very front page, it kind of has that wordle that shows what people are talking about. And so this morning when I first got to work, the biggest word was health, which wasn't what I was expecting when I came to work this morning. So I thought, I wonder what that's all about. So then you can click on it and then it takes you to all of the various online conversations that are taking place, from those traditional media outlets that I was talking about to social media. And I realized that people were talking about the health orders that the governor had announced on Friday. So from the beginning of the day, I kind of knew that that's what was top of mind for people. So as we started getting questions today about the health orders and when Dublin was going to, get in line with the new the guidelines, it wasn't a surprise to me, because that was, I knew that when I got into work this morning. So that was just kind of a neat thing to experience. And if you have a chance to go to the Zen City website, just their website, they have a lot of really great testimonials from members of council and government professionals such as yourself, where people are saying, I always have one monitor turned to Zen City so that you can see throughout the day what kind of new words are popping up and things of that nature. So I just recommend that you do that if you are interested. And as Bruce mentioned, the next step is for us to set up small group executive trainings with you all, and our Zen City customer success representative is prepared to start those immediately. He has indicated that his schedule is flexible and he will be more than happy to work with each of you. Our office will work with the clerk's office to schedule those. And in the meantime, Bruce and I would be happy to answer any questions or dive deeper into the Zen City platform at your request.
Lindsay, can I ask you a question? I know that you can create parameters around wards. And so can we talk a little bit about how you can use this on a micro level? For instance, let's just say Ward 2. That would collect from all of the same places. What would be some ways that one could use that for their ward? How could I use that in projects, in surveys, in feedback, and just sentiment? All of the same. It's just that we would just create a parameter around that particular ward. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and that would be something that Ariel would be very interested in showing you in a conversation with you when you do your training. They can set up sort of a geofence around specific areas and he would be able to do that. And then from there, you could set that up to give you a report to show you kind of what Bruce was just showing you, but you could also set up projects. And Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no limit on the number of projects we can set up. So whatever you might be wondering at any given time, we could set that up and then monitor that conversation within your award.
So I think the one thing that I'm a little confused about, Zen City tells us what's going on, but how do we, through Zen City, tell others what's going on? How do I tell if I have a question and I just want to know what the ward thinks, how can I move in the other direction with Zen City? Is that possible? How does that work?
Yes, so there's a number of ways that could be accomplished, and it would be accomplished through the Communications and Public Information Division. So if you had a question about something and wanted to request a survey, we could do a survey any number of ways, including Zen City. Zen City does have a surveying tool that we have invested in this year's budget. So it would just be a matter of identifying those wishes and conveying it to us.
Then do they send the survey? It's interesting to me, since they collect from so many places. Where does their survey question appear? Does it appear on Facebook? Does it appear on multiple places?
Yes, so no matter what survey tool we use the regular city channels to get out the survey. So we would take essentially, whether it is a SurveyMonkey survey or a Zen City survey, you get a link or a QR code, and then we would use any number of avenues to get those surveys out. So typically we would do that through our e-news, through all of our social media channels, sometimes through posters hanging up at the rec center or out in the community, depending on what the topic is and how wide of an audience that we want to reach.
Okay, that makes sense now. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Lindsay? Oh, Kathy, yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you, guys. I appreciate the admin committee had the opportunity to see this and saw that, it can be quite powerful and in an environment where things can change quite dramatically. And as you mentioned, Bruce, in your beginning, that sometimes 10 voices can appear to be the entire community, where now with all of the tools, if you aggregate it, you get quite an interesting view. One of the things we also talked on the admin committee is the power for this as a collective council. I know Jane talked a bit about at a ward level, but we had said, for instance, as an example, we're going into the CIP or the budget or one of those areas, and we're curious about the community's opinion about a certain park initiative, perhaps, or another maintenance initiative or something. We have the ability not only to do the survey, but and then actually see the sentiment against the survey, not just the survey results, but the sentiment around something. And I think that adds, for us as a council, an opportunity to have a set of feedback in a very dynamic and a broader way. So appreciate that and look forward to the training, and then look forward to us as a collective council figuring out some interesting projects moving forward. So thank you very much.
Great. Anyone else? Yep, I agree, Kathy. That training will be really interesting to see how we can use this. I suppose there's good and bad, as there is to everything on the internet. Of careful what you tread lightly, but tread at the same time. So I'm sure we'll have some challenges ahead finding that balance, but we'll get there. So thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Lindsay. Really appreciate the information, and we'll look forward to those training sessions getting put on council's calendar. Oh,
Thank
Amy,
you.
did you have a question? Saying goodbye. Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, General McDaniel will join us now for a review of council's past goals.
All right, good evening, members of council. Appreciate your time this evening for this work session and to go over a few topics that we agreed previously we would check in on. So this one has to do with the really the collective state of council goals, past and present, There are about 99 of them, thereabouts, as I recall. And we, at the last retreat the council did in 2019, actually, these were put into a sort of a format by our consultant, and I appreciate Vice Mayor DeRosa working on that, frankly, with some fresh eyes looking at these and then sort of categorizing them. And then we went through a series of sort of color coding these as to whether they were sort of, in different statuses. And I think the statuses we're referencing here are really, what is complete or sort of now vested in our culture, or that we do now on a normal basis or are fully implemented, versus those that are in progress and those that we still have a lot of focus on as a priority and are working on. So what I'm trying to do here tonight is to get a sense from council about whether you agree with staff's assessment as to where we are on these, because you will be doing a retreat later in the year, and I want to make sure that we are wholly focused on those things that are in progress and need our focus. The ones that staff is presenting here in green are really the ones I want you to focus on, because we'll continue to execute on and work on those that are color-coded yellow or red, again, in progress or in focus priority. And we'll continue to work on those. The ones that are in green are the ones that we are recommending that they be acknowledged as complete, whether they be a project that was truly completed if on a project basis, or that is now part of our culture and what we do, or it's been implemented as a policy, if you will, and staff is just implements on an ongoing basis. So now the other thing I will add is that we will not lose any of these. They will be archived so that we don't lose them. And in fact, I'm going to give Brandon a minute here before we finish this discussion to show you how he has taken all of these nearly 100 goals and put them into what we call ClearPoint, which I think you're familiar with. That's the software that we're putting our performance measurements on or into, and he has taken all these goals and put them into that. So he'll be able to give you an example or two of those because we want to make sure you understand that any and all these will be archived. They'll be shown as green, yellow or red. So they'll still be there. They're not going to disappear, but I just want clarity on. And I think we also agreed as one of my evaluation items a couple of years ago that, I would bring forward these things that I thought were complete and or in the culture, so forth. And you would sign off on whether you agree that that's the case or not. So long explanation, but the purpose of the discussion tonight was to try to get your sense of whether you agree with what we've coded green or not, or if there's something that should be shifted to yellow or red from green, or vice versa.
Okay, thoughts? Andy?
Yeah, so my first comment or observation is the 2020 column. There's nothing in that column, so it would appear that we were asleep. And I know we had lots of meetings and we talked about lots of stuff, so that was just a quick observation. And then I haven't spent a ton of time going through the ones that were green. I was looking at the others, but on the very first page, number where is it? Number 7. I think that's something that is ongoing and will be ongoing for a really long time. So I don't know how you note that. I don't know whether you make it yellow or whether you have a check mark in every box for every year that we keep talking about this and moving the ball on it. But just some quick thoughts.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Keeler, what number was that one again that you referenced specifically?
Number 7.
Okay.
Leverage cities' broadband infrastructure.
Right.
So, I mean, definitely on it, but we need to, it's not done. So, and there's probably a few others that are similar to that. We're definitely on top of it, tackling it, but there's more work to be done.
Yeah. Like on number 7 specifically, I think we looked at that as staff as that's just part of what we do. It's a utility now, and it's what we do, like water, sewer, roads, or anything else, and it's ongoing. Also, remember you have, and Homer, help me remember, and I want to make sure everyone understands, you did do work in 2020 before the COVID hit. We did get a retreat in. There were the three big goals that happened, which were performance measurements and
Yeah, those
most
were
connected
actually,
city. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, those are actually 20, a year earlier. We did have one additional goal in 2020. So if you look at the bottom of the red and yellow ones, number 28, develop a Dublin 2035 visionary framework. That was one that was added at that retreat in 2020. There should be a check mark in the 2020 column all the way at the bottom.
Homer, mine only goes to 21.
Mine
Me
only
too.
goes to 21.
Well, how did that happen? Well, Kyle, if you share the screen with, let me share the screen.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so you should see 21 through 28 at this point. My apologies to you for that. I didn't realize that that had gotten truncated.
So I appreciate the clarity on what we're actually looking at. These are goals that were set forth in a retreat. But so let me ask you a question. So let's go up to 27, and it would be column N, which I'm guessing is 2016. So number
Are you on the red and
26.
green page are you on the red and yellow page or the green page?
Pardon?
Which page are you on? You on the
I'm looking at your screen, the screen you're sharing.
Okay.
So number 27, number 26. Yep, where your cursor is, that check mark, that would be 2016, right? Ish. 20, it doesn't matter. The question is, was that topic discussed in a council retreat, or was that topic revisited by council?
In that year would have been a topic addressed by council. And I specifically remember the discussions around global fluency training and the like. And I think, was that a 2017 or 16?
Yeah, it's 2017.
Okay, so there's sort of two different things that are happening with this matrix. There's a goal set in a council retreat, and then there is the ongoing discussion about those particular goals. So my initial question was, in the last column, the 2020 column, it looks like we didn't do anything. Well, we did have one policy objective, which was the 2035 framework. But did we not talk about any of these or revisit any of the other previous council's goals?
I think that's why they're yellow, isn't it, Dana? That's in progress, that's something we're currently working on. I think that's what yellow means. And then the red means we're looking to move it up the priority scale. Is that right, Dana?
That's correct. We're working off of the color code system that the consultant brought forward at the last retreat. And so we're trying to stay consistent with that. So I would really look at yellow and red as we're still working on those. Those still need work. They still need quite a bit of work. Red probably tends to mean we need a lot more work than the yellow. I mean, yellow is in progress and happening. Red, yeah, we've started it, but there's quite a bit of work to do yet. I know that's not real measurable here.
And the check mark is really just the year in which the conversation started, right? That's just helping us keep track. When did we start this exercise on this topic?
That's correct. And some of them have multiple check marks because they really happened in multiple years over time, particularly the ones that are up, probably more so up in the green area. You might see a couple check marks and the like on those. So that
So
tends to
Dana-
be why they're a little bit more, done at this point.
So Dana, your request, it would be as follows, if I understand it. We'd like to take the green off this chart, call them done, whatever the group agrees. so that moving forward, what we're focused on is what's on the red and the yellow, and it becomes a more manageable list for management, right? So that is the question. That would be the desire. No, they don't go away, but
Yeah,
now it looks like we're trying to keep 92 balls in the air, where in fact, that was the whole point of the exercise was, can we consolidate some of these and then end up with a much more manageable list for staff and council to collectively look at and say, these are our focus points. Is that the desire tonight?
That's spot on, Vice Mayor DeRosa. It's really to get a sign off on the green, what we propose or consider to be green versus those that we know we still need a lot of work on. So that helps me with a prioritization effort and, like you said, not trying to feel like we're juggling all these balls at the same time.
Yeah,
Now,
and I thought that exercise was a good one because some of these, to your point and Andy's point, is they're never gonna end. So instead, we could roll them up or say, we know that's an ongoing thing, but what we'll end up left with are the top priorities. So councils over time have some sense of what happened. And I think that makes awesome sense, because then we end up with a list of, still a very big list, but
Yeah.
down to a better set of goals
I
here.
mean, the items in green, I really feel we've touched and worked on and continue to work on. There's nothing that we're proposing that we just not do. I think everything in green has been executed to some level, or it's just part of the culture now. It's ongoing. It's been put into an administrative policy, or it's shows up in the budget every year, or, it's actually part of what we do now. There's nothing in there that I would say I'm trying to get out of or not do that council wanted us to get done.
Dana, I would just have one suggestion under the operational ones of 25 environment and Cape City environmental stewardship efforts, practices greener in Dublin. We're seeing, I think maybe when this was originally contemplated in 2007, it was about recycling and things like this. But I think probably that needs to be retermed perhaps into renewable energy, solar, those kinds of things. And I would like to keep that environmental piece on, because we've heard from some of our corporate citizens as well too, their struggle in the solar realm and a few of those. So that's the only one I see on here that I would contemplate changing from the green that's on there.
Yeah, I agree completely with where you're coming from on that. If you look at the comment out the far right, it speaks to the sustainability framework was adopted, and there is a framework that is ongoing. There's a sustainability advisory committee that's ongoing. It's become what we do. In fact, Nick Plauk and J.M. Rayburn and the team are working with that advisory committee, and they'll be reconvening that committee yet this year to revisit the framework and update it going forward, which would then include a lot of your things. So you've put a framework in place, you've adopted, that's done. You've got a advisory committee in place whose job is to keep that going forward. So that's why we considered that part of it done. But I totally agree with you. That's ongoing and it's really important.
Yeah, I just, in focus and in progress, we really only had one item under environment. But yeah, it's just something that, maybe we talk about it at this retreat, maybe it gets back on the list in terms, and it's, re-identified as energy production or something along those lines.
Okay.
But that's the only one I have. Does anyone else have any other that they think need to? Yeah, Kathy.
Thanks to that. And to that same end, I had a couple of them, and I'm wondering if, again, it isn't also a reinterpretation over times under economic development 14 and 15, the 21st century learning environment. I think we did have some chat about this at the last retreat, that what could or should that look like as a bigger element. We had certainly, and if you see across the years, this had continued to come up in 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 as sort of an ongoing. And I'm not sure how I would repurpose that, but I know we had some dialogue about that and what that could look like going forward. So I don't know if that is one that I maybe would say, we could maybe revisit that at the retreat and see if people still feel about that. And if not, then it could fall off the list. But I think, again, almost like sustainability in what we've seen happen with learning and online learning and lifelong learning, and that it might be worth a revisit. And then the only other one also in that exact same category would have been number 18. And that is involve council members. And we're still, I know we continue to have some conversations about that. That one, yeah, Homer, that you're on. That perhaps, I know that ongoing topic, as you know, is something we're discussing right now. So I'm not sure we would put that as done because we're still talking about it. Those would be my requests. And again, we may choose to call them done, but I'm not sure we've accomplished this one. Thanks.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
others?
offer my apologies to you as well. I was just looking at the rest of the green list, and I just realized that everything from 42 on to the end has been truncated off the green list too. My apologies to you for that. I will get the whole thing back out to you as soon as possible, so you can review the balance of lists. There's actually 71 of them on the green list, not 42.
So what happened with that, Homer? How'd that happen?
I'm sure it's when I printed it off and scanned it in, I did not check to make sure I had every single one accounted for. So this is my mistake. When I forwarded it, I scanned it and sent it over to to be posted. I truncated it and didn't realize it. So I'll make sure that the rest of it gets sent to council.
I think the only comment, Dana, that I would have is it might be helpful to understand just from the list sort of what's categorized as something that's now folded into the culture of what you do on a regular basis. Therefore, it's quote unquote done because it's still ongoing, but it's just now part of what you do in an ongoing way versus things that are maybe a little bit more project based that you can kind of put a bow on and say it's done. That would just help me to be like, yep, I agree. I think that's totally folded into what we do. And because I think to Kathy's point a little bit, it's like, well, I don't know if we want to make that yellow because it's still something that we're doing, but like the initial piece of it is really done. So I don't want to turn things back yellow just because we know that they're part of the culture. They're part of what you guys are doing on an ongoing basis. So there's no reason necessarily to leave it on an active list of things because you're going to be doing it. But it might be helpful is since Homer's going to send this back out is to just say like, here's the group of stuff in green that is now folded into the things that we are doing on an ongoing basis, which is why we're marking it as green and kind of archiving it, if you will, versus the more projecty stuff that you can say like, yep, that's done.
Okay.
Because then as we start to talk about, as we have our retreat in the fall and we start to talk about the ideas and things that we have moving forward, we already know like, hey, we're already working on this. Is there something enhanced that we're going to be requesting from you? But it would be the enhanced thing that would go on the new list, not the old thing.
Christina, I think you've made a good point. I think Kathy has too. I think because these things are long-term from 7 to 20, that they evolve. And what started out as sustainability and recycling now becomes electric charging vehicles and fleets that don't use gasoline. It's totally different now. So it might be worth, it's kind of good, Homer, that we don't have them all. We can look at them again with a different eye, I think, and say some of these are finished in their original intent, but now they've opened up a different avenue of thought and a different kind of focus needs to be had. And maybe that's where at the retreat, we can sort of reevaluate the finished project and see what needs to go on with a different eye on it, maybe. Is that kind of what you're getting at, Christina?
I just think we have to keep in mind that working 99 or 100 goals a year, every year in and out is not doable.
Right.
No,
So-
that's exactly right.
So the point of this exercise tonight, whether we had them all or not, I wish we would have, but we don't, is that, we really need to get a handle on what is your expectation around continuous focused effort to get those done. I mean, because a lot of these, it's like a bike, right? Once you're on the bike, you know how to ride a bike, you ride a bike, you can ride a bike. It's kind of what we're doing with many of these. It's just like, it's so much part of our culture and what we do that we don't even think about it. We just do it. And so that's where I'm trying to differentiate between trying to manage a list and make sure I'm reporting back to the bosses that we're executing on all of these versus, okay, we buy off on the fact that, yeah, we do that. We see it in our budgets. We see it in legislation that's been put into place. We know that the staff acts on that. And that's where, I'm really looking for guidance on where your comfort level is with that. It's stressful to look at a list of 100 every month and go, oh my God, am I getting 100 done or not? Not just for me, but for everybody, including you involved. And also to celebrate what you've accomplished, I think to me is as much important as anything else. So.
Yeah, I agree, Dana. And that's kind of exactly what I'm getting at is I'm very comfortable with where we are with these and your assessment of them, the 42 that I can see. I think what would be just helpful for us from a categorization perspective is to say like, yep, these are ongoing. Like we're taking them quote unquote off the list, not because they're no longer being done, but because they're just part of integrated into what we do. Right. And just acknowledging that. Because I think they were things that maybe we weren't integrated with what staff does previously, and now they are, signifying that they're green, that sort of definition of green. Because I think you're exactly right. Managing a list of 100 things is not manageable.
So I guess what would be helpful with that is as you look at the list that you have before you, from a format perspective, if you look at the far right column where we have notes.
Yep.
I mean, that's sort of our explanation as to whether we think it's whatever that status is, right? So does that sort of thing, that sort of format, I guess is where I'm headed, help you, or do you need more explanation than that? Or
I think maybe if you just have it so that it's a little bit more, you've got a little bit of maybe a naming convention there, right? Like this is something that is now integrated into what we do, or this is something that in fact is complete, like there's a bow on it, done. Because like this one, it's green fleets and facilities, it just says ongoing conversation. So that to me means it's continuing to be worked on. So is it done? Is it folded in with what you guys now do every day? Like, what does that mean, ongoing conversation? I just, like, there's just a few of those notes that to me just maybe need a smidge more, not a lot more, just like, it's an ongoing conversation because it is now folded into our culture and into everything that we do. So therefore, I'm comfortable with it green and no longer looking at it on the list. That's one that to me kind of just jumped out, like, what does that mean? That's what I'm talking about. Because if it's folded in with everything you do, like, that's just part of a conversation. That's part of how you consider your fleet and the vehicles that you purchase and those kinds of things, then great, leave it green and get it off the list. You don't have to look at it because it's just part of the culture of what you do from fleet management perspective.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's helpful. We'll come up with something in there. We'll probably do like we did the first few. There's a few in here that just say done.
Yeah.
You'll probably see a lot of these come back, if not all of them, that just say done, but why? So, because I view all of green being done.
Gotcha.
And that's I consider, and I looked at every one of these myself along with staff, and we got staff input, and I went through myself and we looked through how do we think it's done and why do we think it's done, which are the comments out to the side. So ongoing in our vernacular and our discussion at staff level meant, yeah, this is part of what we do. So it's never going to end. It's always going to happen, kind of a thing.
Right. But done sort of has a finality to it. So it's like it's done, but it's part of, because it's now folded in with what you do.
Yep.
There's a difference.
Okay. Well, this great feedback because I need to make sure I'm defining in a way that you all can be comfortable with it. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. And I appreciate the conversation. This is really excellent to look at it in this way.
James?
Yeah, so Dana, I have on number 13, complete Bridge Street corridor plan. And we have a Bridge Street corridor plan, but there's still a lot of conversation about the Franz Road, Bridge Street entrance, that sort of thing. And there's been ongoing conversation about, how to handle, because I don't think we ever came to a real consensus on what the rest of Bridge Street will look like from, maybe the church out west to the west. So is that really completed, or is that something we still need to work on?
Yeah, so I really look at, yeah, in my mind, I was looking at that as part of 2035 ongoing update, because I think a lot of this is going to be looked at, re-envisioned, thought forward, and then you'll reset
Okay.
how you want to move forward was part of 2035. Not that 2035 answers everything, because it won't, but I mean, there's been a lot of work with there's the code update or changes that have been made with Bridge Street District, and then the 2035 plan. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, I honestly think that, as Christina mentioned, I think, you can feel comfortable that the steps going forward in the initial, most of these have been completed. And I would put an asterisk next to of some of those, like on 13, where, refer to the 2035 plan, or it's a reinterpretation of what that project is because so much time has gone by and we've learned something new. So for me, that's where it would go, some of these, because they're going to get a new vision. Annexation is one of them, the annexation and growth policy. I think we're going to have a great big conversation around that, but you've obviously approved annexation and fee waiver, and that's done. So, yeah, so I think I would just like to have a little time to put an asterisk about where I'd like to see it go in the future, but you can take it off the list for these things.
Okay, anything else? Is that mud fairly clear mud?
We'll take another stab at it, but I think this sets us up, and the reason we need to have the conversation, it sets us up for when you do have your next retreat, and we can make this a topic there and try to get clarity on this. I'm not trying to cheat anybody or just get things off the list, but I am trying to get things off the list. So I'll be the first one to admit. So.
Well, I think we want to encourage you to get things off the list. We just need, that needs to happen. That's crazy. No one can juggle that many balls.
Okay, that's great. All right, well, I appreciate that, and we'll continue that conversation. Appreciate this feedback that helps us to take another stab at the explanation. So.
Okay.
Dana, Mayor, if you guys could, I take 2 minutes to just display.
Yeah, Brandon, just really quick.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that this will address some of the questions that were going around tonight, which could be very helpful. So if you just bear with me for one moment, let me get my screen up. Good evening, by the way. Sorry. So is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we've shown some brief snippets of this tool that we're implementing that will help us with the performance measures and metrics and some of the strategic tracking. And I think some of the conversation around tonight, this will help fill in some of those gaps when we're trying to go from a spreadsheet or an updated Word document to something that's more of a system and has more of a history. And so this is just one really quick attempt at looking at the things that are still in yellow and red, for instance. And on that spreadsheet, there were some groupings, and so we represented those groupings here as well. But as we build these things out in the system, we're able to see the name that's there. We're able to see when something was started. And I think some of the more important things are that we start to see some intelligence behind all of these. So when we talk about asterisks and notes and references to other things, there's a place and a space for whomever is kind of responsible or seeing this goal through to offer analysis or recommendations. And these aren't just a single snapshot in time. You can see here there's this last updated field. And this could be something that, if that goal in particular was being reported on quarterly or yearly or biannually. But we retain that history. So going back to Councilmember Keeler's point about, when did we talk about this and what did we talk about? This offers a way that we can look at this holistically back through time and get some of that history. I don't know that we'll be able to go back and put all that history in for these 99 existing goals, but moving forward, it's something I think we can look forward to. Another way that this can help is as we come up with our nomenclature and what our symbols and colors mean, they can mean different things. So, for an initiative, a goal, a program, status is different than it is for a measure or a metric. So right now you see a red arrow, and that's sad because a red arrow, everyone thinks that's down in the dumps. It's just the only one that was in the system right now when we set it up. But this could just be something, again, signifying if we have 2 levels of priority or focus. They could be numbers if we start to prioritize that far. And then I just wanted to give you a glimpse as well that we can start to see the holistic picture as we pull all these things out and we can see kind of what we've done to ourselves, where we've started, where we're going, what's on board, where our focus should be. And there's just many different ways. I've mentioned this system as a system of context. And so there's many different ways to view and see all of these different things. I'll show you one other quick way, just to assure you that we're not losing any of that history. This is just another way that we've organized the data where we can see things, again, kind of organized by grouping or objective, or since I've been working so closely with you all on 2035, I know that we have 4 key component areas of 2035. These could become themes. We can really start to nest these things as kind of strategic thinking. But I just did want to draw your attention that I don't know that we got every single one of the 100 in here, but we did get a number of them that are completed. And then this is also a case where you'll see those notes. So very similar to what you're seeing in that spreadsheet, but I think that this starts to be able to get a little bit more of a complete picture. We can dial it in to see exactly what we want to see, and kind of in fancy and ugly ways. Sorry, I just made this one a little bit ago just to see that we can really dive into any one of these given goals. And then, as we've talked about with this system as well, any other given metric or measure or initiative elsewhere in the city can be tied and related directly back to one of these. So I'm excited to see how this can help us with communication of this and kind of keeping track of all of these things. And I think that it'll help with some of the different questions and gaps we have with Excel sheets.
Great, thanks for that, Brandon. I really like that. I kind of like the heat map approach a little bit, you know, where it's more red to less red to orange, and yeah, that's helpful too. I think to Andy's point, you know, that is more illustrative to say, you know, where we are, where we started, where we're going, you know, all of that kind of thing. So that's quite helpful, I would imagine, for all of us. I know it is for me. Okay, anybody have any other feedback for Brandon?
Thank you. That was very helpful. I'm going to try to make this really quick. Some people keep like lists on a notepad or whatever, and they look at that list and refer to it. And then other people have a system and with a dashboard that they can log into, and they can see basically the same thing, but it's automated, and anybody that works on an activity feeds into that. Maybe Dana, maybe you're a little bit more old fashioned and you keep the list, and Brandon has the system. To me, at the end of the day, the system does the job. And if we can cross a bunch of things off the list, they're still in the system. So it's not like we're completely abandoning these projects. They're still listed as initiatives, and they're still being worked on a daily or monthly or annual basis. So I'm all for kind of giving up the reins a little bit on the greens and handing them over to you to decide what's actually been done, knowing that it isn't being lost.
Well, that's why I mentioned early on, this system will enable us to sort of archive those. We'll never lose track of them. Was one of my earlier comments, and maybe showing you that first might have had better confidence in the green. I don't know, but the green is the green, the yellow is the yellow, and the red is the red. So I need green. Show me green. That's what I'm after. So, but we got to make sure we're executing it. So what?
Brandon does have all the green items in that spreadsheet that he just showed you in ClearPoint. They're all there. So we've already got them all captured.
Good. Well, every day is a school day. That's really helpful. So appreciate that. Okay. Anything else relative to Zen City and past goals before we adjourn to executive session? Not seeing any. So I will make a motion that we adjourn to executive session to consider the purchase of property for public purposes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christina and Andy. Jenny, sorry. Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Aludo,
Yes.
Mr. Keeler,
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms,
Yes.
Ms. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Reiner, Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Yes.
Okay, I do want to remind everyone that we will return to this platform to adjourn this evening's meeting, but we'll do no other public business. So the purpose of us getting back together will be to simply adjourn. So with that, we will see you all in our executive session.
So everyone else, if you are not in the executive session, you can leave this meeting. Kyle, you just need to keep this open so they can return to it. Thank you.
Okay, I do see that we do have a quorum, and with that, at 8:14, we will pronounce this meeting adjourned. So have a wonderful evening. Thanks, everybody.